There were only 3 days left until my wedding with Xie when he had an affair with his secretary, and I caught them in the act in bed. In the over 20 years I had known Xie, it was the first time I had ever seen him so panicked. His hands trembled, tears streaming down his face. He bluntly said he had just drunk too much, and it would never happen again. But seeing the secretary's contemptuous yet composed demeanor, I knew this was definitely not their first time. My mother gently stroked my hair and asked if I still wanted to marry him. I laughed until tears came, but nodded firmly. I'll marry him. Only a marriage alliance could save my father's company, which was on the verge of bankruptcy. It was just disappointment. There was no love left. Marrying anyone would be the same. On the wedding day, everyone was bustling about in chaos. Only I sat quietly at the dressing table, as if I were an irrelevant outsider. When the time came, my father held my hand and stood at the entrance of the banquet hall. He held back again and again, but still tremblingly wiped the corner of his eye. He said he was sorry. My heart suddenly felt a pang of bitterness, but I forcefully suppressed it. I barely managed to smile and said, "Dad, no need to say sorry. Xie still has feelings for me. I will be happy." Father said no more, but his back bent lower and lower. Finally, the doors opened. Countless spotlights glittered brightly. Xie, in a sharp white suit, stood ahead holding a bouquet. Maintaining my smile, I took the first step. Time seemed to rewind, and I suddenly remembered what my mother once said. Back then, our family and the Xie family were of comparable status and lived nearby. Xie was 3 years older than me, but he was like a little adult, always staying by my side. The day I started walking, he happened to be standing in front of me. Holding my little hand, he taught me step by step how to walk. I continued forward in my wedding gown. The scene shifted to when I was 10 years old. Xie wiped the milk from my mouth and couldn't resist stealing a kiss on my cheek. Embarrassed and annoyed, I pushed him away, declaring crisply that boys and girls should maintain distance. Xie stared at my face, his eyes full of determination. "What are you afraid of? I will definitely marry you in the future." My steps halted as Xie came before me with the bouquet. Father placed my hand in his, humbly pleading, "Be good to my daughter." Xie, red-eyed, promised, "I will." Just like when I was 18, Xie, in front of both families, held my hand firmly, declaring his vow to love only me for a lifetime. Back then, I blushed deeply, trusting Xie completely, filled with anticipation for faithful, unwavering love. Now I am 23, finally married him as I wished, until the host asked that question of consent. Somehow, the sadness I had held in so well suddenly broke through the dam. I couldn't control my emotions anymore. Tears fell uncontrollably, drop by drop. Tears blurred Xie's face. For a moment, I could no longer see clearly who I was marrying. I just closed my eyes and choked out those words. "I do." After the wedding, Xie and I finally returned home. He had drunk too much and was helped by the driver onto the sofa. I wrung out a wet towel and gently wiped the light sweat from his forehead. Xie frowned, then suddenly opened his eyes. Seeing me, he was stunned for a moment. Then he took my hand and smiled foolishly. "I finally married you." Wife? That title sounds so good. Can you call me that too?" Xie's possessiveness towards me was truly immense. From the moment I officially started dating Xie at 18, he had been eager for me to use that title. But I always believed in acting according to one's role and never gave in. Back then, Xie would always shake his head helplessly while using his slender fingers to rub my head, calling me a good girl. Now, meeting Xie's expectant eyes, I just smiled and loosened his tie for him. "You're drunk. Let me help you to bed to sleep." The force of Xie grabbing my hand suddenly intensified, hurting me so much I frowned. "Why won't you say it? Call me, just once." I pressed my lips tightly together, looking at him without a word. Finally, Xie couldn't help but close his eyes. He seemed extremely uncomfortable, both devastated and irritable. "Yes, I was wrong. You're still blaming me, aren't you? Then why don't you get angry at me? Jiangyi, we have over 20 years of history. I only made this one mistake, just this one." His voice carried a tone of defeat, as if I had become the guilty party. The Jiang family's investment failed this year, and the company was in jeopardy. Our background, once equal to the Xie family's, suddenly seemed inferior. I even felt undeserving of Xie. The funding gap for my father's company was too huge. But Xie suddenly proposed to me at this time. After you marry me, we'll be a real family. Then it will be only natural for me to help my father-in-law, and you won't have to worry anymore. Xie held me in his arms, whispering softly in my ear, "Besides, you were always meant to marry me." That day, I was so moved I cried uncontrollably. The greatest pain weighing on my heart was once again easily resolved by this person. An immense wave of love completely enveloped me. I wished I could give him everything I had. I truly felt I was the happiest person in the world. I hugged him tightly, vowing to love him for the rest of my life. With 3 days left until the wedding, I was excited and anxious all day long. I messaged him almost constantly. If he didn't reply for more than half an hour, I would even get anxious and feel like crying. As the bride-to-be, I had been staying at my parents' house during that time. That day, Xie was delayed in replying. After waiting for a long time, I suddenly felt an urge to go see our newly purchased wedding home for some reason. My mother drove me there. When I opened the door, an unusually high-pitched scream came from the bedroom. The sounds rose and fell continuously. One only needed to hear it to know exactly what intense activity the two people in the room were engaged in. My hands and feet instantly went cold. Instinctively, I pushed my mother, who was frozen in place, outside the door. Step by step, I walked to the bedroom door. Xie was charging like an animal in heat. His face was filled with an extremely excited smile. His sweat-damp hair was slicked back, revealing those flamboyant and captivating eyes. Words I had never heard him utter before, filthy and degrading, spewed from his mouth. Slut. Whore. I stood frozen like a puppet. My handbag slipped from my hand and fell to the floor with a clatter. In that instant, everything came to an end. Xie explained to me. He had drunk too much, and the secretary had helped him back to the new house. Drunken mistake. Red-eyed he swore to me. It was only this one time, only this one mistake. Under the immense shock, I inexplicably leaned in, trying to smell his breath. There was no smell of alcohol, just an indescribable, foul odor. So dirty. I gasped for air. Recognition and emotion clashed continuously, leaving me without even the strength to cry. I had sailed through life smoothly, always following the rules. The biggest setback I had ever faced was my father's impending bankruptcy, and even that problem had been easily solved by Xie. From the dawn of my understanding to the blossoming of first love, inside and out, everywhere, there was this man. In that moment, how I wished I could slap this man hard, then hold my head high, and maintain my dignity by announcing the cancellation of our wedding. Until I saw my mother's anxious figure in the doorway, reality crashed back into my mind. Forcing a stiff smile, I looked exceptionally ugly. After that day, the wedding proceeded as planned. Xie and I maintained a tacit understanding, a surface-level decency. Only I knew. Everything was different. Now, Xie was still waiting for my answer. As if, as long as I acknowledged his role as husband, everything could still be salvaged. I opened my mouth, but my throat seized up painfully. Xie let out a breath and was the first to stand up. Forget it. It's late. Let's sleep first. He took a step, then stopped. He turned back, his face full of surprise as he looked at my hand tugging at his sleeve. Wife. I forced a smile, my voice humble. Husband. Xie was overjoyed. He turned back and hugged me tightly, using that mouth to kiss my cheeks incessantly, until my eyes met his, those eyes full of desire. I suddenly covered my mouth, instinctively dry-heaved, pushed him away and ran to the bathroom, vomiting my guts out, completely oblivious to the suddenly dark and grim expression on Xie's face, and those hands clenched tightly into fists. After that unpleasant parting that night, I simply slept in the guest room. The next morning, I endured a headache getting up and prepared breakfast according to Xie's tastes. even though before this I had never done such a thing. Before I discovered Xia Xiyuan's infidelity. He would make my favorite breakfast in the morning, and even if busy, he would unwaveringly come to have lunch with me every day. He had occasional business engagements in the evenings, but he would always video call me at exactly 6 o'clock to make sure I ate on time. I clumsily fried an egg. The hot oil sizzled loudly, making me instinctively step back. Suddenly, I bumped into someone behind me. I turned around. Sisyoon's face was still dark, but he took the spatula from my hand and expertly flipped the frying egg. Go out. There's kitchen smoke here. I shut my mouth, my eyes feeling a bit sore again. I never liked the smell of kitchen smoke, and Sisyoon never allowed me to cook. I wanted to cry again. Holding back tears, I stepped forward and tried to take the spatula back. I'll do it. This is what I should do. I didn't know what I did to displease Sisyoon this time. Sisyoon's expression worsened. He slightly clenched his jaw, then suddenly threw the spatula aside, turned and walked to the living room, grabbed his coat, and left the house. I stood there numbly, continuing to fry this egg that was about to burn. After clumsily turning off the heat, I brought it to the table and took a bite, but only tasted bitterness, until tears fell onto the plate. I couldn't hold back anymore. I collapsed onto the dining table and wept bitterly. Sisyoon didn't come back all day. In fact, he was gone for 3 straight days. Until this morning, my father called me. Father's voice was hesitant. He first asked if I was doing well. After I briefly answered, he stammered out, "Daughter, the investment Sisyoon promised our family after the wedding hasn't been finalized yet. You know, every day we delay, we face significant penalties. Could you maybe?" Then it dawned on me. Sisyoon was probably unhappy with my attitude towards him. He was indirectly trying to make me give in. After hanging up, I felt somewhat lost. But reality didn't allow me to wallow in sadness for too long. I put on Sisyoon's favorite white dress, mustered my spirits, and went to his company. The Xia family business was now thriving. Even in today's increasingly competitive market, it stood like an industry benchmark. I had to admit, for the Xia family to reach this point, Sisyoon's personal ability was not to be underestimated. In the past, I only thought he was formidable, and I was used to standing behind him, taking it easy, until reality slapped me hard in the face. Standing downstairs, I found my legs felt weak. I had to tell myself over and over, "It's okay, Jeongyi. Just beg him a little more humbly, and Sisyoon will surely agree." As for my own happiness, anyway, life was already like this. The elevator stopped. Passing through the straight office corridor, I stood outside Sisyoon's office door. Just as I mustered the courage to knock, the secretary suddenly appeared from behind me, blocking my knocking finger. Black, wavy hair cascaded over a white blouse, bold red lips, confident and flamboyant eyes. At that moment, a single finger was pressed to her lips, signaling me to be quiet. I recognized her. She and Sisyoon, just days ago, were in my wedding home's bed. The secretary's fingertips were very cold. She took my wrist and led me to her office. When I came to my senses, I violently shook off her hand. Honestly, from the moment I found out about Sisyoon's affair until now, I had been completely dazed. My thoughts often wandered, always forgetting what I was doing in the present, until the secretary gestured for me to sit down and poured me a coffee. The bitter aroma hit my nose, briefly snapping me back to reality. "I'm sure you have a lot you want to say." The secretary smiled openly. "But I don't advise you to barge into Mr. Xia's office right now. They should still be playing at this time. Seeing it would be too much for you." I was stunned, my heart beating uncontrollably. I heard my own hoarse voice playing? Playing what? The secretary's gaze drifted out the window. "You probably don't know, but Mr. Xia has some extreme sexual desires. He cherishes you, so he never does these things with you. But since he can't satisfy them with you, he has to find us outsiders." I understood every word the secretary said, but somehow, I just stood there dumbfounded, unable to react at all. I just looked at her incredulously. "What are you talking about?" The secretary turned, took a USB drive from her drawer. Her eyes held a secret anticipation. full of malice. Take a look at this. There were countless small videos on the USB drive. The earliest date was surprisingly July 19th, 3 years ago. I closed my eyes and opened a video. After watching for less than 5 seconds, I decisively chose to close it. But my hands were shaking too badly. I couldn't hit that red X, no matter how I pressed. Screams intermittently exploded in my ears. The woman's agonizingly exaggerated expression in the video kept magnifying, until the slender-fingered hand around her neck loosened. The woman could finally breathe again, the pain gone, her face now full of the utmost seductive smile. That hand was really too familiar. It had rubbed my hair countless times, pinched my cheek, or when I was sad, gently wiped my tears away, drop by drop. And July 19th. That was my 20th birthday. I clearly remember that day. After blowing out the candles, Sisuan drove me to the seaside dozens of kilometers away, set off fireworks for nearly an hour. We even kissed under the magnificent fireworks. And the time of the video was exactly 20 minutes after we returned to the city, after he had dropped me home. I couldn't help it. I retched violently again. Tears and saliva flowed together. I simply knelt in front of the trash can, wishing I could bury my head deep inside, mouth open, wailing silently. Who can save me? Gasping for air. I was in so much pain I wanted to die. Sisuan had spent over 20 years weaving a vast net that covered my entire life. I suddenly felt so pathetic and laughable. After a long while, the secretary handed me a tissue. I wiped my mouth roughly. When I looked up again, besides my eyes still being red, the feeling of humiliation suddenly vanished. My gaze was calm, and I looked at the secretary levelly, with composure. Thank you for telling me this. The secretary lit a cigarette. Hearing this, she shook her head. I'm not that kind-hearted. Last time, seeking a thrill, I suggested going to your wedding home to do it. He hesitated for a moment, but still took me there, and you caught us. The secretary laughed mockingly. He took it out on me, cursed me out royally, and fired me. I'm leaving today. Pretty heartless, considering I'd been with him for almost 3 years. Don't look at me like that. We're all adults. I have my own needs too. 3 years ago, Mr. Xia promoted me, and nobody from a rural village with nothing to this position. I couldn't find a job back then, was bullied by people from my hometown, almost starved to death. If not for Mr. Xia, I wouldn't be here today. The secretary tapped her cigarette ash. I didn't miss the flicker of sadness that passed through her eyes. Mr. Xia has many people around him, but he gives generously, so we all stay in our place and never dare to come before you. The secretary looked at me, carefully studying my face. Mr. Xia was right, you really are too good. Knowing about this kind of thing, I thought you'd at least slap me first, regardless of the consequences. I forced a smile. Why blame you? It's my fault for not seeing clearly, for being foolishly deceived for so many years. A person doesn't just suddenly rot. Sisuan just disguised it too well. Deceived me for over 20 years. Putting away the USB drive. I let out a breath and sent Sisuan a text message. Husband, come home for dinner today. Turning off my phone, I then booked myself a full physical examination. But as I got up to leave, I spotted a glaring file on the secretary's computer desktop. The secretary made a half-hearted attempt to block me, but I was quick and opened it. Sisuan came back. The moment he pushed open the door, I was bringing the last dish from the kitchen. Seeing him standing at the door, I instinctively lowered my eyes, my mouth pouting with way. You're back. Go wash your hands and eat first. It might not taste good, so don't be picky. Zane stood still, staring at me with a deep gaze for a long time. Suddenly, he opened his arms, the meaning clear. I pinched my palm, put on the most weighty expression. Then, regardless of everything, I threw myself at him, hugging Sisuan tightly. I cried brokenly in his arms, pounding his shoulders with my fists incessantly, accusing him tearfully of why he hadn't come home for 3 days, and hadn't come to comfort me. I buried my face in his chest, unable to see his face, but the arms hugging me grew tighter and tighter, full of restraint. Sisuan kissed the top of my head, and transformed back into the Sisuan of old. It's my fault. Don't cry. I lifted my face and Suzanne smiled, wiping my tears with his finger. You've turned into a little crying kitten. Let hubby blow it away. Suppressing my disgust, I pressed my lips together and said nothing. After dinner, I insisted I wouldn't sleep in the master bedroom. Pale-faced, red-eyed, I looked at Suzanne. Knowing he was in the wrong, Suzanne couldn't stop hugging and comforting me, promising to buy a new house tomorrow, with the specifications up to me. Leaning against him, I shook my head. Better forget it. Just renovate the master bedroom. Turn it into a guest room. My family is facing bankruptcy now. I don't have much money to spare, and I don't want you to pay for everything. Suzanne chuckled. I almost forgot mentioning that. I'll send someone to talk with your father tomorrow. He pinched my nose tip, as if seeing through my sarcasm. Since when have I ever let you lack money? Your very first pocket money was from me. Only then did I stop crying and smile, holding him tightly. After my father's company situation was resolved, I proposed going to work at my father's company. Suzanne frowned disapprovingly. Isn't it nice at home? If you must work, why not come to my place? I looked at him hesitantly. Can I? But I don't know anything. I'd have to start learning everything from scratch. You're already so busy. I don't want to bother you with work matters. What kind of talk is that? Suzanne was amused. But then, thinking of something, he didn't continue that line of conversation. If you're bored, you can go out and have some fun. I wasn't impatient. I nodded in agreement. I booked a skydiving session. The instructor was a very handsome young man. His tight-fitting clothes accentuated perfectly defined muscles, his smile warm and radiant. Only upon asking his age did I realize we were the same age. Suzanne explained the process to me, and I listened attentively, until someone called him from nearby. Suzanne responded and turned to tell me, wait here for me. I'll be right back. I nodded lightly. 10 minutes later, Suzanne jogged back. Seeing me still standing there motionless, waiting, he smiled incredulously. There's a sofa over there to sit on. Why did you actually stand here waiting for me the whole time? I was puzzled. You told me to wait here for you. Suzanne looked at me for a moment, then couldn't help but cough lightly. All right, my bad. I didn't expect you to be so obedient. I frowned in disgust instantly. Please watch your language. After a moment of surprise, Suzanne sincerely apologized. Extreme sports like skydiving had never been part of my life in the past 20+ years, because Suzanne didn't allow it. I remember when I turned 18 to celebrate my adulthood. I wanted to try bungee jumping. Suzanne seriously talked to me at length about it, and being worried, even went through my phone. Until he scrolled through my high school group chat and saw someone mention the thrill of bungee jumping. Suzanne, with a dark expression, helped me leave the group, and deleted that classmate while he was at it. Back then, I just thought he was overly concerned for my safety, being overprotective. Thinking about it now, it was just his selfish need for control. He treated me like an important item in his life, just never like a person. After the training, I boarded the helicopter. The roaring sound gradually grew louder. I looked down at the ground, getting farther and farther away. My first thought was jumping down like this wouldn't be so bad. When I realized I was thinking this, I couldn't help but pinch the bridge of my nose, feeling distressed. So pathetic, Jiangyi, I murmured to myself. Getting all worked up over someone like Suzanne. Really pathetic. Reaching the Yerding altitude, Suzanne was pressed tightly behind me, making the final preparations. Then whoosh. We plummeted from the height. After landing, Suzanne quickly sent me the video taken in the air. I did some minor editing and posted it on Moments. In the video, our bodies were close, and I showed an unprecedented, happy smile. Set against the background music, Suzanne's look towards me even seemed affectionate. Satisfied, I put down my phone and prepared to leave. Suzanne quickly followed me out. He coughed softly, embarrassedly holding out his phone. Can I add you on WeChat? If you want to do it again, you can contact me anytime. I was silent for a few seconds, and unsurprisingly, my phone rang. I smiled at Suzanne. Not convenient right now. Maybe after my husband dies. Then, under Suzanne's shocked expression, I answered Suzanne's call. Hello, husband. On the other end, CSUN's tone was, as expected, low. Where are you? Out having fun. You were right, being at home is really boring. I couldn't find anything to do, so I followed your advice and went out to play. Sisson let out a heavy breath through his nose. Sounded pretty angry. Stand right there. I'm coming to get you. Okay, then thank you for the trouble, husband. After hanging up, I sent him my location. While waiting, I suddenly received an email from the hospital. Calculating the time, it was indeed time for the test results. Opening the email, after confirming I didn't have any infectious diseases, I saw the small line at the bottom. Clinical diagnosis. Pregnant. I was pregnant. CSUN was angry. He picked me up but pulled the car over to the side of the road and didn't say a word. I looked at him innocently, feigning confusion. What's wrong? Today, I deliberately dressed boldly. The same tight clothes, my chest curving softly. Wearing my hair straight and black, with light, pure makeup. Seon threw a subtle glance my way. Actually, ever since my family's business started failing, I had noticed. How much Seon loved me, I didn't know. But somewhere along the way, a certain respect had definitely been lost. It was as if he could finally keep the beautiful bird he had carefully raised in its cage, no longer worrying it would dare to fly out. And now he realized. This bird was starting to spread its wings, preening its feathers. If he wasn't careful, it would attract the male birds outside, unless he tied it completely to himself. CSUN said nothing. He just leaned over, lifted my chin to study my face, his gaze falling on my lipstick-tinted lips. He leaned in and kissed me firmly several times. After a while, he finally spoke. Come work at my company starting tomorrow. Be my assistant. I'll teach you personally. On the first official day at the Xie family company, I saw there was a new secretary. A very young girl with a neat, obedient hairstyle. On closer look, her eyes even resembled mine a little. She smiled slightly, her eyebrows curved, but her tone dropped abruptly. You can call me Secretary Chow. Mr. Xie has arranged your seat in his office. Mr. Xie hates Mafan. If you want to stay, you need to learn to be smart as soon as possible. I nodded seriously, putting on a sufficiently cautious and timid act. It seemed this new secretary didn't know my Sunfan, and she harbored malice towards me. After CSUN finished his meeting and came back, he directly came and sat in my seat. He beckoned me over, signaling me to sit on his lap. Secretary Chow's expression changed slightly, but she didn't dare say anything. Her face sinking a little, she turned and left. I obediently sat down, listening to CSUN explain company matters. Fortunately, the Jiang and Xie companies had relatively similar industry structures. After listening for just a while, I roughly grasped the content. The morning passed quickly. At noon, Secretary Chow brought in a lunch tray. Seon waved his hand. No need to prepare separately from now on. We're eating out today. Finished speaking, Seon habitually put his hand on my waist, and we walked out together. As we passed her, I saw Secretary Chow's almost circum expression. I shook my head inwardly. Sure enough, she was involved with Xian. Couldn't hold her composure for long. A week later, I could already access relatively important company documents without CSUN knowing, but I still did odd jobs every day. When really bored, I'd lie on the table, staring blankly at CSUN's profile as he worked, although CSUN didn't say anything. Seeing the slight curve of his lips, I knew he was enjoying this obedient side of me, until a month later when the Xie group landed a core project, and Secretary Chow's jealousy towards me had reached its peak. That day, CSUN had just finished an important meeting. Before entering the office, he heard angry scolding from inside, because I had accidentally messed up a document. Secretary Chow seized this opportunity to vent her anger on me viciously. Worthless. Idiot. One insulting word after another tumbled from Secretary Chow's mouth. My eyes reddened, my head hung low, tears threatening to fall but not quite. Seon pushed the door open the moment he heard. Then, under Secretary Chow's panicked gaze, he gave her a heavy slap. Who do you think you are? Who allowed you to speak to her like that? Secretary Chow stood frozen, then quickly ran out covering her face. Seon's eyes were full of distress, stroking my hair over and over. I said I felt unwell and asked to go home and rest. Siesun hesitated for a moment, but still took me home, comforting me for a good while before reluctantly returning to work. Shortly after Siesun went back, the pinhole camera I had placed next to my computer showed Secretary Chow entering again. She locked the door. Without a word, she knelt in front of Siesun's desk and unzipped his pants with her teeth. I let out a breath, turned off my phone. Taking advantage of this time, I finally escaped Siesun's surveillance. I took some documents and returned to my parents' house. When I arrived, several leading business owners were already waiting with my father. Seeing me come in with the documents, they all showed satisfied smiles. The Xie group had a huge